Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. So far, the market is looking pretty good. The market is not moving in a crazy way or anything like that just yet. Give it some time, but so far it's actually pretty slow and steady. The SPY is just lingering right under that $450 level. I will say there are a couple stocks moving in a major way this morning. The first one is Peloton. Peloton is just skyrocketing. There are rumors that it might be bought out by Amazon, Nike, or maybe even Apple. But then again, it's up just under 30%, and these are just rumors so far. But Tom, talk about a great start to the week. Peloton's booming.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm really happy to see this one doing well. They've been beaten down for so long, and anytime a company gets a deal with Amazon, that's good. So hopefully the rumors end up going through and we can see this one keep getting some hype here. But yeah, we're up 27%. We've been seeing some stocks fly up and down with some of the earnings, of course, and then also just crazy news. Like we had Snapchat go up, what was it, like 40% last week? That was an insane rise out of them. And it's good to see Peloton kind of following along. Both of those companies have been beaten down so much over the past couple of, I should say the past 6 months.
Oh, yeah. And even longer than that, Tom. Poor Peloton has struggled, almost more than, any other company, especially, any company that has popped up during COVID. This stock was at one point a $171 stock, and it's up 30% today, and it's only at $31. So it's been pretty rough, to say the least.
Yeah, it has, and that's been just about 1 year ago. So yeah, it's been on a pretty bad downtrend here for Peloton. Same thing with Snapchat even. They were doing a little bit better kind of later last year, but they still ended up falling off in a pretty bad way before they got their big explosion. But yeah, stocks are looking pretty good today, Mike. Like you mentioned earlier, the SPY was holding up pretty well. Looks like it's still just going flat, but I see lots of stocks in the green today, especially growth stocks. We have DKNG coming back in the green, actually getting a nice pop today at open. It looks like Penn Gaming's rising, and even Blink charging.
There we go. It's a good day when DraftKings is in the green, so I'll take it. So yeah, that's good to see. Tom, another pretty important piece of news that not too many people are talking about has to do with SAVE, so SAVE. So there's actually a pretty big deal going through with Spirit Airlines and Frontier. It looks like they are merging together. And it's just another merger and acquisition. It's kind of like a scenario with Activision or Microsoft or any merger or acquisition. But SAVE is popping up in the same way that AbbVie will be stagnant for the next couple months. SAVE will also be stagnant. Anytime a company has news of a merger or acquisition, the company that is being bought out normally just trades flat for months, and then once the deal either goes through or it flops, that's when we see the movement.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of strange to see it, and you can see it on Activision's chart how it's really been flat ever since that deal came out. Of course they got the initial rise, and then they kind of consolidated a little bit, but they've pretty much been staying right around that $80 mark, it looks like. So expect SAVE to find a good area. Maybe $25 will be the area that they sit around.
Hopefully. Alrighty, so someone had some good info in the Discord related to this. It looks like Health Freak said that the implied value of SAVE is $25.83. So yeah, if it lingers right around 25, that would definitely make sense. So great stuff there. But I will say, Tom, so far the market is pretty split this morning. Of course, we have some companies rising. The SPY is turning over just a little bit, which is a little bit worrying. But we have companies like Facebook still down, Square's down 2.5%, Spotify's down 3.5%, and then on the other hand, we have Tom, we have some of these recovery plays moving back up, the cruise lines and even DAL and RCL.
Yeah, I see that. The airlines are going up. It looks like they're going up kind of in sympathy with that deal this morning. I don't know if the deal is something that's helped these companies kind of recover, but we can see Royal Caribbean, they reported earnings last week and took a bit of a tumble on Friday, and looks like they are recovering right back up. I know Delta's back. We have CCL coming up. American is up. Yeah, it seems like the airlines are really liking that deal this morning, and they all kind of popped in pre-market along with SAVE. It's kind of strange to see it.
Yeah, no doubt. Alrighty, so we have Iranical saying thoughts on ON. I have not looked at this one in a while, but they reported earnings, Tom. They're up like 7%, which is always good to see. Honestly, I just don't really follow this one too much. I don't really follow their fundamentals either, but on like a technical basis, like they're looking pretty good. I mean, they're bouncing off of that. Is that like the 100 SMA, Tom?
Yeah, this one's the 100.
Okay, yeah. So like they're trying to bounce off that right now, but the market's been wild, and like I said, on a technical level, it looks decent, but I don't really follow this one too much.
Yeah, me either. And like Mike said, those technicals are looking pretty good. They're forming some pretty good supports at the bottom. And I like the way they're bouncing off those SMAs and even the $55 mark. So not looking too bad. And they even are kind of getting up above $60 now, which if they're able to hold up above that, I think that would be great news for this week.
Perfect. Alrighty, I'm just trying to see what else we have moving. We have George mentioning how Coin, Mara, and Riot are all up big. So absolutely, Coin, Mara, and Riot are definitely booming up, Tom. It looks like the cryptos are trying to have a nice bounce.
They are. Look at that. That looks nice to see. You know, we got Mara up 9%, almost up to 10% today. That's awesome. Let's see slash BTC. Check out the Bitcoin futures. And yeah, we're all the way back up to 43,000. I know we took a tumble below 40,000 a couple weeks ago, Mike, and it looks like we're actually right back up above that as of this weekend. So that's great news. And I know crypto was bouncing up over the weekend quite a bit. So hopefully it can continue up this week.
Awesome. Tom, I saw you lurking on DWAC. What's going on there?
Man, they are up 9% today. You know, we're getting closer to their release date. I believe it's February 21st. You know, we're all the way to February 7th now. We're getting a lot closer. This stock is getting a lot of movement and volatility to it. It really broke out above those highs of last week this morning and just straight up exploded. We're up to $92. And it's just crazy to watch this one go up, especially into this launch. You know, I would say, though, just be careful playing it. You know, it might be good for a breakout or it might be good heading into that launch, but just keep in mind this company is going to be all over the place. So just know that.
All righty. Good to know. But yeah, it's definitely popping up and it's moving, Tom. So crazy stuff there. It looks like we are seeing some decent reversals out of, you know, a lot of the growth plays. Like, of course, DraftKings is in the green. Palantir's up nearly 3%. Matterport's up 4%. Even Zoom and Teladoc are in the green. So it's looking like a pretty good day so far. I love to see this upwards movement with growth stocks because they've been struggling so much.
Yeah, me too, actually. It's just looking so nice to see. I know Teladoc is a big one that's been continually beaten down, and they're actually still pretty close to their lows here. But I'm really hoping just for a nice recovery. The thing that sucks, Mike, is it seems like with all these growth plays, it's finally becoming a nice spot to start to buy some good leap options and stuff like that. But then we look and see the implied volatility is at 90%, and we were at, you know, 50%, 40% just a few months ago. It's like, oh, it's such a good time to buy, but that implied volatility just it pushes you towards shares.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So, you know, while we all want to buy the dip with calls, it's just smarter to go with shares, short puts, or if you really wanted to play calls, you'll have to do like a call debit spread. But, you know, I guess you can say that is the same for like any major market correction, because even in like March of 2020, like IV was so high, and like some people made out like very well with calls by buying the dip there, but you know, we don't always see a quick recovery like we did in March 2020. You know, like for example, like if we went to let's say DraftKings, if we went to DraftKings, you know, right now the stock's at $22.50. You know, as bullish as I am on DraftKings, I don't expect it to recover back up to like $65 in like the next 5 months. You know, like that's just like, it's unreasonable. You know, it's possible. It's just very unlikely.
Yeah, it really is. You know, that would be such a big jump to go. What would that be? 20, 40? That'd be like 300%. So yeah, that would be an insane jump. And, you know, I know that DraftKings and a lot of other stocks like them, a lot of people are buying the dips and they're like, they're thinking that, hey, I'm going to buy and DraftKings is going to go back up to 60 within a few months, but it's probably going to end up taking a couple of years, at the least. Sometimes I've seen these recoveries take a long time. Hopefully DraftKings is quicker than others with all the innovations they've been doing, but hopefully they also get that deal with Disney, Mike. I heard or I saw Sim kind of talking about that in the Discord earlier.
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, I know Disney owns a little bit of DraftKings, so it's like you would think that they would choose DraftKings over Caesars, but you know how it is, Tom. Sometimes weird things happen.
Yeah, definitely. And money definitely plays a factor there. So I
Yeah.
guess if they see a better opportunity somewhere else, I guess they'll look for it. But hopefully they end up picking DraftKings. That's the big hope. But either way, I mean, Disney themselves should be good either way. So like as long as you like honestly, if you own some DraftKings and some Disney, that would be a great way to like kind of hedge that play, I think.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad, not bad. Let's see. So let's check back in on Peloton really quickly. It's up 27% today, Tom. IV is continuing higher. Like this is crazy. Like normally when the stock pops up 27 or 30% in a day, the IV would fall. In most circumstances. Sometimes there are exceptions with like AMC and GME and things like that. But it's just crazy how this one's moving. It is so volatile. It's insane.
Yeah, I just can't believe how much it's moving. And honestly, like with the way it jumped up, I feel like looking at it, like the daily chart, for example, we didn't really even recover up that much. Like whenever we look at it, it popped above the high of last week, of course. But, in reality, I mean, we're back to like the levels of January 20th just a few days ago. So it's kind of like, I know that jump was awesome, 25%, but man, it looks like just to even get to the bottom of this gap, we have another 100% rise from where we are now. That's kind of insane to say.
Yeah, that is crazy. Wow. Alrighty. So, yeah, so far the market's pretty volatile, or a couple stocks are really volatile. Looking at a couple other plays we did not talk about just yet. I mean, Tom, I will say that the solar industry is having a pretty decent recovery. Over the past couple weeks or so, I've really been watching FSLR, but mainly Enphase and Run. Enphase and Run are the better companies in my opinion. Enphase is like the top dog in my opinion, but it has been holding up better over the past couple weeks than it did over the past couple months, and they have a huge earnings release set for this week.
Yeah, this earnings is going to be huge for Enphase, Mike. And with the way they're kind of bouncing at the bottom, I love this setup. I think it looks like a really good pickup here. They're really far off their all-time highs. There's still almost not quite 100% upside right now, but you're looking at something like, let's see, it's looking like 90% back up to that all-time high. So that's a pretty good discount to buy it down here at $146. I think if you get this one under 150, you're getting it at a pretty good price, and hopefully those earnings go well. We've been seeing some stocks tank down on earnings, some stocks fly up. I really hope that Enphase is one of the ones that fly up, and I feel like looking at their chart, they're in a pretty decent setup to go up. So hopefully they come out with some good numbers, Mike. And honestly, if they do well, we might be able to look at other solar stocks and start to maybe like FSLR, and then start to maybe draw some conclusions that they might have decent earnings too.
True, no doubt. All right. I will say, Tom, we do have some plays really moving. Like Uber's looking pretty good so far. It's up like 5%, which is pretty good. Uber, Neo, AMD, like a lot of plays are actually looking really good.
Yeah, they are. Stocks are really starting to pop up here. Hopefully the SPY starts to go green. It looks like it's trying to, but it's kind of still just staying flat. Yeah, like you mentioned, lots of big tech stocks. We have AMD breaking out, which is nice. Like you said earlier, those reopening plays are doing pretty great. We have Carnival Cruise Lines up. All the airlines seem like they're up with that nice deal with Save and Frontier. But looking at it, I mean, my watch list is mostly green, Mike. We have a couple in the red, like Kraft Heinz, Facebook, JP Morgan, Qualcomm, but a lot of great companies are in the green. We have PayPal, Amazon, Tesla's even green today. I mean, that's awesome to see. I know Tesla was all over the place last week, and they had that very nice recovery Friday.
Absolutely. We have a couple people mentioning Coin too, so let's check back in on that one. I know Coin has been struggling a lot, like ever since it IPO'd. But it looks like it's like holding that $200 support pretty well, and it's really trying to run. Like it's up just under 5%. What are your thoughts on this one? And are there any like major levels approaching?
Let's see on like the 180-day 1 hour chart. As far as major levels, I'm seeing a pretty big one up here, right around $220. Looks like we got above that $200 psychological resistance this morning. So since we popped up above 200, we might see a pretty good breakout. It looks like we had 2 rejections before finally breaking it here. So maybe we'll start to run up. And as we run, like I said, I'm really going to eye up that 220 support, or I should say resistance now, but definitely eye up 220 as we start to rise. I think that's going to be the next major level. Looks like there might be some resistance right around like, I would say like 214 to 215, but I think 220 is definitely more defined, and there's been so many more bounces there. So definitely eye up 220, but I like it, Mike. I think Coinbase will be pretty good. And honestly, a lot of these cryptos have been beaten down. Let me kind of see if I can pull up a chart of Bitcoin really fast here. Yeah, look at Bitcoin. It's actually starting to fly up in a pretty nice way. So yeah, I mean, I like the setup, and hopefully Coinbase keeps going. I think they'll be a pretty good long-term pickup.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm just waiting for the day that we get like a legit Bitcoin ETF. I know we have the BITO ETF, but that follows the futures of Bitcoin, and by buying that, you're slightly overpaying because the futures are just slightly greater than the actual price of Bitcoin. So it's like, I can't wait until the day we get like a legit Bitcoin ETF, because I can just sell puts on that, and like when the market goes crazy, you just sell a couple puts, and you can profit off of that high IV. But also, even if you get assigned shares, it's like you're just holding, I guess you can say, coins of I guess you're holding fractions of a Bitcoin, which if you like it for the long term, that should be a huge win. But I guess having the BITO ETF is like a good start for the, I guess you can say, regulatory process.
Yeah, it's a great start, and the good news is like it's generally pretty good for day traders. Like if we see Bitcoin up like we are today, we see BITO up, 6%. It's not always 100% the same, but at least it does provide some opportunities. We can see there's actually quite a bit of volume coming in last week into this one. And yeah, I definitely know what you mean though. I can't wait to get a real Bitcoin ETF also. And yeah, this one's just been all over the place. Fell from 44 down to $20.90 over the past like 2 months. Yeah, it's definitely been crazy, but hopefully they come out with the real one pretty soon. And just looking at even Bitcoin futures, Mike, like, how do you feel about this recent dip? Like, I know a lot of people were looking for Bitcoin to go lower. A lot of people were buying the dip. Like, what are your thoughts here? Do you think this might finally be the uptrend we need to maybe start heading back up towards, like, let's say up above like 50,000, maybe up towards 60?
See, it's a really tough question, and the main reason for that is because like there are so many things that are, I guess you can say, like black swan events when it comes to cryptos. Like we could have any country saying, hey, we're going to ban Bitcoin, or we're going to put these restrictions in, or we're going to do this or that. And it's like, it's just it's not even hard to predict those events. It's impossible. So it's like, for me, I don't even trade Bitcoin in the short term for that reason. It's just like more of like a longer term, like buy and hold type asset for me. I will say that it is good to see the continuous higher lows. That's a great sign. But in terms of like a specific outlook for like the next couple months, I really just don't have one. And I don't think anyone could have like a really accurate one, just given that there are so many black swan events that happen, not only with Bitcoin specifically, but the whole cryptocurrency market. And that's just my opinion. I will say though, like I said, the price action has been pretty good so far, and I'm excited to see what Bitcoin looks like in the next 5 to 10 years.
You mean you can't tell me with 100% certainty that we're going to go up 100% next month?
I wish I could.
Wish I definitely see what you're saying, because that's I hear those questions all the time. People ask like, how do you think that this is going to perform over the next 2 months? And you can maybe like look at some supports, look at some technicals, and maybe like try to draw some conclusions. But you're right. Those black swan events, they really play some pretty key roles, especially in crypto. And anyone who acts like they really know 100% what's going to happen, they're probably lying. Usually it's usually traders who are saying that are brand new. So hopefully we start seeing some pretty good movement, but I definitely see what you mean. It's like impossible to predict those. And hopefully we see Bitcoin start bouncing. It looks like a pretty good recovery up so far. And if the momentum keeps up, hopefully we can get up towards at least 50,000.
For sure. And to be fair, like, you can't like predict anything with, 100% certainty. Like, there's even black swans that happen in the stock market. But I would say that, when you're looking at like the SPY or any specific company, generally there's a lot more like information that you have access to. And like the news is, I guess you can say more like more anticipated. Like I said, like sometimes there are black swan events, but there's just more information and more data to look at when it comes to stocks. So, that's just one thing to keep in mind. But besides that, Tom, I will say one company that I have been watching for quite some time is looking pretty decent, and that's AI. AI it's up just under 4% today, and it has struggled quite a bit since its IPO, but so far it's looking pretty good, and hopefully this momentum continues, and I think it will.
Yeah, I'm really happy for this one. AI's been beaten down, and I have some shares of AI, and I'm happy to see it coming back. So overall, looking pretty great. That IV's definitely still high. Pretty crazy to see how high the IV got a couple months ago. Like that was pretty insane with those earnings there, but. Yeah, I mean, hopefully it recovers. Looks like they got pretty close to that $20 support, having lots of momentum today. Just like a lot of growth stocks, we have AI up in a big way. We have Roblox running up. Even stocks like Unity, which had some good earnings last week, are continuing to fly up. So it's looking pretty good for these growth stocks today. Like you mentioned, Mike, Palantir earlier was really flying up, and they're still doing decent.
Yeah, true. They are popping, Tom, and I will say it's kind of like... it's about time, because when you just like fall every single week for the past like 6 months, it's like, all right, like you got to have some green days, but it is good to see this pop back up. I just can't believe how much it fell, and it's not even just Palantir, it's just like all growth companies really, like whether you're looking at Palantir or DraftKings or AI or Enphase or Zoom or Corsair or anything. It's just been rough, which obviously it hurts, but then again, if you're buying the dip, it should be pretty rewarding over like the next couple of years.
Yeah, it should. And I really hope that this is a really good bottom for Palantir on $12. A lot of people are probably worried, Mike, because they see how Palantir probably was touching that $18 support. They straddled there for like about a month, and then they finally broke down. I bet if people are pretty scared to buy it up down here at $12 now that it's consolidating kind of like that. But I would say, at this point, it's such a good price point. I think you just have to kind of put your fear aside here and just, throw it in. I know it's kind of weird to say that sometimes, but like we say, time in the market is better than timing the market.
Absolutely. Alrighty. So we have Vicky asking for levels on TTD and NEO.
TTD, let's see, the trade desk. I was actually eyeing this one up last week because I noticed they had a big drop, kind of like we've been seeing with Enphase and stuff, and they are going to have some earnings coming up, it looks like on February 16th. But as far as support and resistance, I don't have anything marked on the chart right now, but there is a pretty big resistance right around, looks like $80 even, and then I have another one up here right at $90. Of course, there's one at 100, but honestly, as we're going up this week, eye up $80. We just passed above $75 today, so I would definitely eye up 80 as we start to rise. And as far as some good supports, especially on the daily chart, there's a pretty big level down around $70. And let's go look intraday and see if there's anything else. But yeah, I would say there's a pretty good range between 70 and 80 if you wanted to play that. There's also, like I said, some intraday support now at 75 since we passed that.
Sounds good. Alrighty, and then what do you have for NEO?
For NEO, N-I-O. This one's actually well below a lot of its supports, but they have a big support around $20 even. I think that's going to be their biggest point down there, but we probably won't come back down to 20. As far as support levels, like right around where we are, we had some pretty big bounces last week, right around 22.75. There's been a lot of bounces right around there. So I think that'll be a pretty good support, as well as possibly $24 this morning since we passed it. And as far as resistance coming up, really, it looks like right between 25.50 and 26. I would say 25.50 is the more defined level, but I would definitely eye up $26 as well. But it's looking pretty good today, Mike. It's up above that $24 resistance, and it's starting to run up in a pretty good way.
There we go. There we go. All right, we have Sean saying thoughts on TBT touching 19 again. So I'm really glad someone brought this up. So we actually still have rates rising, so TBT, when this goes up, that means rates are rising. And even if we look at TLT, because a lot of people are familiar with that one, when TLT falls, that means rates are rising. So rates are rising. Even if we look at like TNX right now, which is the 10-year Treasury Index, that's also rising. /ZB are the 30-year Treasury bond futures, which is falling, which means rates are rising. So it's like the main point is that rates are rising, and we have the market rebounding. And I'm very, very glad Sean brought this up, because I know in the beginning when rates were rising, it just absolutely destroyed the valuations of a lot of growth companies. You guys know that I talk about DraftKings at least once a day. At least once a day. So we'll use them as an example. DraftKings in, I guess you can say, let's say August, let's say the beginning of September. This stock was $65 a share. Now it's like $23 a share. So the valuation just got pummeled over the past couple months. What happened with this one? Was it something terrible about the company that was, released recently? No. Was it, a giant short seller report attacking the company over the past couple months? No. So the point is that there are a lot of, I guess you can say, valuations just getting shredded in the market right now, and that was because rates rose, and it hurts the present day valuations of growth companies. Because, I guess the whole explanation process is a little bit too long for this video, but basically the higher rates are, the lower the current day valuation is for growth companies. So basically, we are seeing rates rise now and growth companies are rising. Over the past couple months, rates rose and growth companies got destroyed. So now that rates are rising and growth companies are holding up, this to me is a very, very good sign. And I think we're seeing this because, one, honestly, the growth stocks just fell so much. Like, it's like, all right, you fell from 65 down to lows of $17.40. It's like, what are you going to do? Go to $2? Like, it's just like that's unlikely. So it's like, I think part of it is just, one, the growth companies are just like reaching their bottom. But then also, two, like we pulled up a week ago, Tom, we had a chart that showed how stocks performed during rate hike cycles. And actually, the market does pretty well. So, I feel like the initial fears with rising rates is kind of like settling down. And I think that people are realizing, hey, maybe some of these companies are just a little bit too low. Maybe they sold off a little bit too much, right? And you can say the same thing for DraftKings or Zoom or maybe Palantir, maybe Corsair, maybe AI. So it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it is. There's so many different hypotheticals that could go on with it and everything too. Of course, as we start to go, as we start to hear Powell and the Fed speak, and as they start to actually raise their benchmark, I wonder how the markets are going to react to that, because as of right now, obviously rates have been rising on their own, but once the Fed starts raising their benchmark and stuff, I'm really curious how the overall market's going to react. And I'm not saying the growth stocks are going to tank back down, but I'm really curious just how SPY will react. Like you said, Mike, those charts were pretty telling that showed how the market still did good even while rates were rising. And whenever we're looking at the SPY here, it's just been so flat this past week. Even on Friday, for example, whenever the rates started really rising up, you can see that the SPY had a pretty good up day. So I'm pretty curious just to see how the overall market reacts, because it seems like it reacts worse in the short term. So for example, when the Fed does raise rates, and maybe when they talk about that during their FOMC meeting, we might see the market down for maybe like 2 or 3 days maybe or something like that. And then it seems like the market's been recovering right back up, which is pretty good news, So hopefully it just hurts it in the short term there when they start raising those benchmarks, because I feel like those benchmarks are going to be a pretty telling thing over the next like couple of months, especially when they start meeting next month.
Yeah, for sure. And as much as I wish that the market could just go up every single day without fail, and as much as I wish that, free money can last forever and the stock market just continues to have 30% returns every year, it's just not possible. And rising rates is just a thing that, like, honestly, is just needed for the economy. So, like, even though it hurts stocks a lot in the short term, kind of like Tom said, like, they should be fine in the long term, especially if you're, like, holding good, solid companies. Like, if you're holding, like, I don't know, like some penny stock that has like 200,000 in revenue, it's like, and then like a couple million in debt, then yes, you might have a problem. But if you're holding like multi-billion-dollar companies that are solid companies and that have true growth potential, you should be fine.
Yeah, and honestly, like if we're looking at some of these big companies, like if you have like a portfolio and you own some Apple, some Microsoft, like maybe some Tesla. I know Tesla's a little bit riskier. Well, I should say more volatile. But whenever you look at all these other stocks, like if you own some of these, I think you're set up pretty good for the long term. You don't have to worry too much about any of these major downtrends or anything like that. Especially if you've been getting into these companies for a while now. Like we say, Mike, you should be averaging in, and we've been preaching it for almost like a whole year now. Like if you would have been averaging into some of these stocks, like you'd be at some pretty good levels. And even on like DraftKings, if you would have been averaging into that on the way down, you'd be somewhere like around, maybe like $29-30, depending on where you got in. But, I feel like that averaging in is going to be so smart, especially in a market like this, because there's just so many weird things going on that I feel like that it's almost like we said, it's just so hard to filter through all the black swan events right now, especially at this time. Like we have rates, we have Ukraine and Russia, like we have stuff with like Biden, like there's just so much stuff going on. And then we have Omicron, and it's like, there's just so many things that I feel like that right now, it's such a smart time to just start averaging in, maybe shorting puts, stuff like that. I really feel like that's going to be the way to go for the next like 3 to 6 months as these rates start to go up.
Yep. Great stuff. Alrighty, so it looks like we have George saying DDOG is up a lot. So let's. Oh wow, Tom, 7%. Yeah, this one's popping. I don't really follow it too much, but it's definitely having a day.
Yeah, really nice. Look at that, up 7.16%. Look at it on the daily chart. It recovered up over the past couple of weeks from $120 all the way up to $160. Like this one's been really popping back up, which is nice. I know they were a huge player in that cybersecurity industry, and I'm glad to see them flying. They do have earnings coming up this week as well, so looks like a bit of a pre-earnings run-up going on.
There we go. Yeah, you mentioned Snow and Net too, so that's awesome. He also mentioned CRWD, which let's take a look at that one. Yeah, I mean, all the stocks he mentioned are just exploding, so hopefully that movement continues. We have Jerry coming in saying DraftKings with the rocket emoji. Let's go. Yeah, it's up 3.5%, so that's great to see. Hopefully this continues up. Let's see. We have Iranical mentioning Fubo. I have not looked at Fubo in a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's like bouncing off 10.
It's a very similar setup to the rest of the growth.
Yeah, that is true. That is definitely true. I just don't know Fubo's fundamentals, so I'll take a look at them in a little bit. Yeah, in a little bit. It has had a wild ride. I've been looking at like the max weekly chart, and it went from like $8 up to $63 all the way down to 10. So we have Tom pulling up the fundamentals right now, so let's take a look. Let's see.
Yeah, Fubo, let's see here. It looks like oh wow. It looks like they've definitely been all over the place. I can't wait to see how their 2021 numbers look when they come out, but yeah, as of right now, Mike, it looks like a typical growth stock, not looking the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say scroll down. I mean, their
revenue's
revenue,
not too bad.
Yeah, like they're consistently growing their revenue, which is good. Their cost of revenue is really high though.
Yeah, I've never seen one this high actually. It's kind of insane.
Interesting. Can you scroll down just a little bit? I just want to look at the cash flow. Just up a little bit. Yep, up a little bit more. Perfect. Top right, up a little bit more. All right,
There
thank
we
you.
go.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So the operating and free cash flow pretty big in the negative. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, their revenue is consistently growing, which is good. Can you scroll all the way up to the top? I just want to see their price of sales. It's 2.93, which isn't bad. So it's like if Fubo can grow the way everyone is expecting, paying a price to sales ratio of 2.93 is pretty good. It's just like they really need to grow and like they need to get their stuff together because they're still not cash flow positive, which is not a horrible thing. A lot of growth companies in their early stages are in the negative, but we'll see. I mean, I think their upcoming earnings report will tell us a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. And the hope for me with Fubo, Mike, more than anything, is just that it straight up goes up in sympathy with the other growth stocks. Like if we just continue to see Palantir up, 4%, DraftKings up 4%, as long as Fubo keeps following along, I'm happy with it. I know that it doesn't have the best fundamentals, but they are kind of like, like you said, they're a new growth company. They are in that streaming sector, which, is pretty hard to get into, especially like sports streaming. So looking at it, I hope they do better. But, as if we're being honest, Mike, like if we look at the fundamentals, then we go look at, a stock like Zoom, it's pretty hard not to buy Zoom after looking at those.
Right. That's the thing. Like, Fubo can be good. It's just like it needs a lot. It needs a lot. So.
And the crazy thing is, Fubo even looks like it's moving better off the support down here than Zoom. It's been insane how Zoom's been reacting lately.
True. Yeah. All right. Cool. So Fubo's not bad. I mean, on a technical level, it looks okay. Like, it's been pretty weak, like even on like a charting level, but maybe it's like a potential play for like a pre-earnings run up, maybe.
Yeah, and they are bouncing off that big support around $8, and it looks like where'd they get to here? Somewhere like $8.80 or somewhere down there at those lows. That was right around their all-time low, kind of like what we're seeing with DraftKings. DraftKings bounced right at their like IPO price or right around that all-time low. So hopefully some of these bottom supports end up holding up. And if they do, it'll make for some pretty good buys for these growth stocks. But I think you're right. Overall, I just, when I look at Fubo's fundamentals, I think I'd rather just buy one of these more established companies down here. But that doesn't mean Fubo's terrible, or it doesn't mean they won't end up, being good for the future or anything.
Yep. Hunter said that when we were talking about like the dashboard, Tom, he's like, it's like I was trying to get you to itch the part of my back, like I was like,
yeah, it was like,
oh gosh,
yeah. I kept going down when you said cash flow. I go down to here, and I was like, I was looking at these purple bars on the quarterly, and I wasn't looking at the one up here.
Gosh, that's funny. But yeah, I mean, so far the market's doing pretty good so far today. Love to see that. Tom, one company that's actually doing pretty good is Boeing. Boeing is up around 1.5% today, which it's not a ton. It's nothing crazy. But for a slow-moving company like Boeing, it's good to see. And it looks like Boeing is trying to like establish a base right around like this, what would you say, like 205 level?
Yeah, it looks like 205 is holding up as a pretty big support here. There was also a bit of a few touches right around 203, but 205 was a huge level over the past week. It looks like last week it just consolidated there for like 3 straight days before finally breaking today.
Yeah, true that. So yeah, I mean, we got through all of the major movers so far. One other interesting play I wanted to cover was Facebook. This one's actually continuing to trade lower.
Yeah, this is insane. I could not believe that they continued lower like this. And, I get it. Maybe they were going to go down for those couple of days last week. I was hoping that this week they would start to see a bit of a recovery back up. And one thing I kind of want to look at is Netflix as they fell with their earnings. So like if we go look at maybe like a 180-day, 1-hour chart, you can see Netflix, they fell down and then they kept going down for like 1, 2, 3, 4. They consolidated for like 4 or 5 days before flying back up. So as I look at Facebook, we've been down for about 1, 2, 3. I'm not saying that they're going to stay down for exactly 5 days and come back up or anything, but I feel like that we're starting to form a pretty good support down here. And I feel like we're kind of getting to that point to where we might start to see some green momentum, but personally, I'm not going to bet on it yet, at least in the short term. I think for a long-term pickup, Facebook will be great for shares or for shorting puts. But as far as like a short-term play back to the upside, I'm really going to hope to see a nice breakout up above 240. I think that's a pretty big resistance.
Hopefully. All right. And then we have Jerry saying Russian news is positive for Boeing. He said he heard if the U.S. Imposes sanctions, Boeing is collapsed. So, yeah, it makes sense. I have not been following that specific, like, sanctions news. But, yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. And so far, Boeing's looking pretty good. So that's good to see. And then Bravo even said that he's trading Boeing right now. And he said, what do you think? So I like it. It's just like there are some pretty big events that are like pending, kind of like Jerry said. Like we have no idea what's going to happen with this Russian news. So it's like I don't know.
And sometimes it seems like war might help a stock like Boeing or like maybe like Lockheed Martin or like General Dynamics or like those. I forget. I don't know what they call it exactly. Like I guess you could say defense companies.
Yep, exactly. Defense companies. So
yeah, so like looking at those stocks like General Dynamics, they're not doing too hot today, but it looks like Boeing is running up in a nice way. I wonder how Lockheed Martin is doing, and yeah, they're honestly kind of more stagnant too. So looks like Boeing is obviously the one benefiting here, and I feel like they're just maybe going up with the other airlines. It seems like most of the airlines are doing pretty good today. Like American Airlines is up, Delta's up, obviously Save is up pretty big because of that deal going on, but yeah, it just seems like it's just going up with the overall airline sector today. And honestly, I'm really happy to see Boeing up above this 210 resistance, Mike. Like 210 has been such a big level for Boeing over the past year. Like we've gotten rejected here and bounced off of this level like 50 times, it seems like.
Yeah. So Bravo asked how we feel about it for a day trade. So I like it for a day trade. We're right at that 210 resistance. So as long as we hold above that, I think it should be totally fine. But yeah, I mean, just be on the lookout for like any news that releases because that can push this one a lot higher or a lot lower. It just depends on the specific news.
Yeah, and with the breakout, like I'm really hoping to see a nice run here. Like if we were able to get up to maybe like 213 today or something like that, I think that can make for a really good intraday move. So hopefully with the breakout up above 210, we keep seeing that movement. Like you said, Mike, as long as we hold here, it should hold up pretty well. And like we mentioned, it is a stock, it's breaking out, and there's not too many like breakout patterns today. Like if we look at like Palantir, of course it's up, but we're running into a ton of these big resistances and they're not really breaking up above them in a major way like Boeing is. So I'm just really hoping to see Boeing like on a daily chart start to just really run because the way that they've been holding up above 200 and stuff has been so nice the past couple weeks.
No doubt. All right, Tom, well, we basically covered everything. Do you have like any last minute plays or any stocks you're really watching for today?
Oh, let's go look at that earnings chart really quickly. I actually have it pulled up here on a separate screen ready to throw it over here for us. But we can see that tonight before close, we're going to have some decent earnings. We have Chegg, but I'm really going to be curious to see how Pfizer reports tomorrow morning, Mike. I think that's been a pretty big stock this year. If we go look at Pfizer's chart, they've been all over the place. It looks like they're actually taking a bit of a dip today into these earnings. So it's definitely a pretty crazy play. And with the way they're up a lot, it's hard to say, Mike, because they were at 61, they fell all the way down to 50, and now they're just kind of consolidating. So heading into these earnings, it's going to be tough for them. They've had a lot of good vaccine news come out this year and stuff like that, but I would not be surprised if this one ended up going lower. I know earnings are so 50-50, but this stock has been so explosive this year. I feel like they might slow down here soon.
True that. So the market is dropping right now. Looks like we are seeing a decent amount of selling pressure come in. So Tom, like for support, what are you watching?
Yeah, for support, like especially on the SPY today, we hit 450 as a major resistance and we're just failing to break out above that. As we start to fall down, 448 is definitely going to be the level I'm looking at intraday. And then below that, 446, and then below 446, 444. And I think 444 is going to be the main level to look at. I would not be surprised if the SPY ended up down towards 444 at some point this week. I'm not saying today it's going to happen or anything, but that's been a pretty big support. We've been bouncing off of it quite a bit. And if we do fall below 444, Mike, I'm going to be pretty worried about the SPY. Like if we look at it on the 1 hour chart, below 444, there's not too many supports all the way down to like 436 and then even back down to 430. So hopefully we get that nice uptrend. Stocks seem like they're doing pretty good today. It's mostly mixed, but there is a lot of big movers, which makes me happy.
True that. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. Before we close it out, I just want to thank everyone personally. So thank you so much, Jamie, George, Vicky, Bill, Hunter, Kathy, Iranical, Spacely, Carlos, Tap, Sam, I think we got Vicky, Sean, Mike, Jerry, and Bravo for joining. I think that's everyone. So thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate all of you guys joining and asking a bunch of great questions. So hopefully the market holds up well and starts popping. But besides that, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.